But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. What do you say to that?
It's one thing to poke fun at a politician, but it's something else entirely to burn his entire reputation to the ground on live television. That's what Bill Maher just did to California Governor Gavin Newsom, and the takedown was both shocking and unforgettable. For years, Maher had shown flashes of support for Newsom, praising his polish and charm. But even Maher has limits, and now he's had enough of California's chaos. On his show, he calmly but ruthlessly took Newsom apart, piece by piece. California isn't just another state. It's home to over 12% of America's population, a hub of business, culture, and influence. But under Newsom's leadership, it has spiraled into dysfunction. Crime, homelessness, and economic decay everywhere you look. Maher opened with a biting line that made the audience laugh, but cut Newsom's ego in half.
Gavin Newsom is the governor of California, home to 12% of all Americans and 50% of all Mexicans. On the upside, Newsom is the only governor, with the possible exception of Kristi Noem, who looks like they could do porn.
Gavin Newsom may be the only governor in America, besides Kristi Noem, who looks like he could star in adult films. Behind the humor was a brutal truth. Newsom's looks are his only real selling point. Think about that. You're the leader of the most powerful state in the nation, yet the highlight of your legacy is your appearance. Maher reduced Newsom's career to a shallow parody, and that stung harder than any partisan attack. The jab landed because it came from someone who once praised him. When a former ally laughs at your empty record, the audience knows the honeymoon is over. But Maher didn't stop with jokes. He calmly dissected Newsom's policies, exposing them as hollow gestures that have worsened California's biggest problems. He compared being governor of California to being a conservator for Britney Spears. The audience erupted, but the point was sharp. Running California under Newsom has become less about leadership and more about babysitting disaster. Maher reminded viewers of California's biggest shame, the homeless crisis. He pointed out that people argue the homeless choose California. Why? Because the state's policies have practically rolled out the red carpet for them. This wasn't compassion, Maher explained. It was chaos. Instead of solving the problem, Newsom has enabled it, turning sidewalks into tent cities and neighborhoods into open-air shelters. And homelessness isn't the only crisis spiraling under his watch. Crime has surged as well. Maher didn't mince words. California under Newsom has become a place where criminals feel protected and victims feel abandoned.
I don't want to say I don't want to say he really wants to be the guy who steps in if the current nominee goes down, but he gets an alert on his phone every time Biden can't think of a word. The downside is that governor of California is kind of like being conservator for Britney Spears. They'll attack him on California's homeless problem, but there's a response to that. The homeless can live anywhere, but they choose California.
The pattern is clear. Homelessness up, crime up, quality of life down. That, Maher said, is Newsom's legacy in a nutshell. Of course, the knock on Newsom has always been that he's slick. Maher admitted, "I'm okay with that." But then he twisted the knife. Slick doesn't solve problems, slick just distracts from them. Newsom, he argued, has mastered the art of saying a lot, while meaning very little. He can weave speeches that sound inspiring, but dodge every real question. Californians may get smooth words, but words don't build housing, stop crime, or cut taxes. Newsom has become the king of empty promises, big speeches with little follow-through. Maher calmly reminded viewers that knowing about the state's problems isn't enough. Everyone sees them. Leadership is about fixing them, not spinning them into sound bites. And that's where Newsom has failed. Instead of tackling homelessness, rising crime, or skyrocketing costs of living, he's been polishing his image for a possible run at the presidency. Maher exposed that ambition with one of his sharpest jabs. He gets an alert on his phone every time Biden can't think of a word. The crowd laughed, but the sting was undeniable. Newsom is desperate to step into Biden's shoes. The problem, Maher continued.
Of course, the knock on Gavin has always been that he's slick. Yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that. I notice slick is something no one has been accusing Biden of lately. Do you want good at talking or don't you? Newsom is the best communicator in the party with a history of standing up to bullies, and his name lends itself to the best slogan since I Like Ike. I'm having Gavin.
Is that Newsom doesn't stand a chance on the national stage, not after what he's done to California. If he can't fix his own state, how could he ever fix the country? Even Democrats, Maher said, are skeptical. Some progressives openly admit that Newsom is too extreme for a national audience. And when your own side doubts you, your political brand is collapsing. Maher then zeroed in on the hypocrisy at the core of Newsom's leadership. California is one of the wealthiest places on earth. Yet under his watch, ordinary people are drowning in debt, taxes, and failing public services. That isn't progress. It's decline disguised as progress. This wasn't partisan mudslinging. It was fact after fact. Maher laid it all out, and it was devastating. The so-called California dream has turned into a nightmare of sky-high housing costs, rising crime, and businesses fleeing to friendlier states. Maher shared what others have whispered for years. Newsom cares more about national spotlight than solving his state's problems. His speeches are rehearsed auditions for the presidency, not genuine efforts to govern. And then Maher shifted to one of the most absurd examples of Newsom's priorities, the law requiring department stores with over 500 employees to have a gender-neutral toy section. The audience laughed, but Maher's point was crystal clear.
I was on KBLA yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want for running president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American-owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but he doesn't think you can win. And good job this year making it rain.
You're welcome.
Because
that was my legislative priority.
It was looking bad there for a while, and we still don't have enough water in the Colorado River and all this stuff. And then whenever I read, 80% of the water goes to agriculture. Almonds. No one ever asked you about almonds? Oh, I'm going to ask you about almonds.
Newsom's attention was on toys. Instead of putting out fires, he was busy policing aisles at Target. This was the kind of woke circus that Maher warned would sink him on the national stage. California has become ground zero for experimental laws that sound progressive but solve nothing. Maher calmly reminded viewers that most Americans are tired of identity politics being shoved into every corner of their lives. As he explained, voters want safer streets, affordable living, and functioning schools, not lectures about toy labels. This was where Newsom's slick image crumbled most. The contrast between flashy rhetoric and failing reality couldn't have been clearer. And when confronted with criticism, Newsom always retreats to his slick defenses. He talks about industry support, different priorities, and progressive values. Maher calmly exposed this for what it really is, political theater. He nailed the truth with one simple idea. Acknowledging problems doesn't fix them. Knowing the house is burning doesn't make you a firefighter. Grabbing the hose does, and Newsom has done little more than stand at the window, pointing out the flames. From there, Maher turned to water policy, another area where California has failed under Newsom. He highlighted how nearly 80% of the state's water goes to agriculture, with almonds swallowing a shocking share of that. The irony was staggering.
Look at the swing states. There's only 8 of them.
Right. Well, I mean, California is an interesting case study, isn't it? It's the size of 21 state populations combined.
Yeah.
2/3 of the state is very deeply red. We don't need to be lectured on rural politics or border issues. I mean, in so many ways, these are familiar issues, and the issues of the heartland of the United States are very much a part and parcel of the work we're doing in this state. But look, I understand this notion that you're from the coast, you don't understand those things. You can't talk the language. You're not able to communicate, and you're not able to actually encourage and find that common
No,
ground.
it's stuff like there's a new law in this. I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
In a state where residents are constantly told to cut back on showers, lawns, and even flushing toilets, billions of gallons are funneled into almond orchards. Maher described it as California's most ridiculous contradiction. And it's not just about almonds. The deeper problem, Maher said, is how California's resources are mismanaged at every level. While residents ration water, corporate farms soak up the state's lifeblood. Newsom's polished speeches about climate action and modernizing infrastructure sound inspiring, but the results don't match the words. Californians still face shortages, wildfires, and droughts year after year. Maher calmly pointed out that this wasn't leadership, it was spin. Slick words can't refill reservoirs or stop wildfires. They're empty promises dressed as progress. Then came perhaps Maher's most cutting observation. He accused Newsom of picking pointless fights with red states like Florida and Texas, as if stoking division would somehow make him look strong. Maher told him bluntly, "America doesn't want another Civil War politician. People are tired of endless battles. Between blue and red, Newsom's constant war with conservative states only deepens division." The truth, Maher explained, is that governors like Ron DeSantis in Florida focus on results, while Newsom spends his time scoring rhetorical points. And in a head-to-head matchup, Newsom's slick speeches wouldn't stand a chance against real-world outcomes. Even worse, Maher warned,
Too much government there.
That's an interesting one because the department stores came to us supporting that. And they were the ones making a case for that. They were making a case they're already moving in that direction.
Wanted you to make a law about them?
Well, but they supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support from the industry itself. But I understand how that's exploited, and good people can disagree. But that's not something we woke up and said, this is a top priority for the state, when we know the top priorities are homelessness, housing, the issues of crime, quality of life, and issues related to regulation and taxes, which are all top of mind.
Newsom's obsession with identity politics and cultural fights makes him unelectable on the national stage. If his California blueprint were applied to the entire country, America would crumble just like his state has. Finally, Maher tied it all together. He calmly explained that Newsom's record is a disaster in designer suits. Homelessness, crime, high taxes, failing schools, and an exodus of businesses. This is the legacy of his leadership. The slick packaging may fool some, but reality doesn't lie. Maher didn't raise his voice, but every word was a dagger. He calmly reminded viewers that California was once the crown jewel of America, a place of opportunity, prosperity, and innovation. Under Newsom, that legacy has been shattered. He painted a picture of streets overrun with tents, businesses locked behind steel shutters, and families packing their cars to leave the state for good. This wasn't a dream anymore. It was a warning. Maher explained that Newsom has mastered the art of illusion. He looks confident, he sounds polished, but underneath it all, his policies have failed Californians at every level. Slick speeches can't hide crumbling streets. The comparison to former President Obama was inevitable. Both thrived on charisma, charm, and rehearsed talking points. But Maher made it clear. Obama sold hope, while Newsom is selling a California dream that doesn't exist.
We grow a boatload of almonds
I'm well
here.
aware.
You know how much water it takes?
Many gallons.
1,900 gallons to grow a pound of almonds. Come on, man. take on big almond.
Big on almonds.
I mean, it's not like we don't have the water.
No.
But
You're right about it. It's not that we don't have the water. That said, the last couple of years were tough. I mean, but it's also where the water's falling and we're not capturing it. And we're not capturing in those extreme years with these atmospheric rivers. Wets are getting a lot wetter, dry's drier, hot's getting a lot hotter. And so we've got to modernize our conveyance system. We've got to modernize our storage, not just above ground, but below ground. And so that's a big part of our focus and frame, including desalinization plants. We have 20 projects just on desal that we're working on today. So we put out a detailed water strategy that includes, by the way, getting that Delta conveyance project back up and operational, and includes the first above ground off stream storage facility in half a century in the state, which, by the way, is being aided by a regulatory package I pushed forward to reduce red tape in the state of California.
And if America buys it, Maher warned the entire nation would pay the price. What happened to California would happen coast to coast. He hammered the point home by saying that California was not just another state. It was the test case, and the results under Newsom have been catastrophic. Maher calmly listed the evidence: homelessness at record highs, crime waves in major cities, corporations fleeing in droves, and ordinary families crushed by costs. These aren't isolated issues. They're the core of Newsom's legacy. And yet, Newsom continues to act like he's America's savior in waiting. Every time President Biden stumbles, Newsom's ambition becomes more obvious. Maher exposed it with cutting precision. The problem, Maher explained, is that voters outside of California won't buy it. Swing states won't overlook the wreckage he left behind. Even Democrats in safe states know he's gone too far. Maher shared how progressive voices themselves admit Newsom couldn't win nationally. He's too extreme, too tied to California's failures, and too dependent on style over substance. The audience could sense it. This wasn't just comedy anymore. It was a cold, hard analysis of a politician collapsing under his own image.
You're good at this.
What?
See, I'm telling you, you're good at this job. Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, I feel like the last couple of years you've purposely picked this fight with the red states. I mean, the DeSantis. Yeah, but I don't want to live in the Civil War country.
I agree with that.
You know what?
Well,
but you seem like you purposely want to set up this dichotomy between, this is a blue state and that's a red state.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live in that country. I like Florida.
I'm with you. And by the way, I like Florida as well. I like all these states. I completely agree. I don't want to have a state of mind that's a constant fight or flight. We've gone through so much. We've been polarized and traumatized. It's been a tough 5-6 years across the globe, not just in this country. That said, I'm not going to sit back and watch. You made the point just a moment ago in your monologue. You got folks out there trying to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. America in reverse, rolling back voting rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, not just access to abortion, but contraception.
Maher didn't let up. He reminded everyone that leadership is about action, not applause lines. It's about solving problems, not posing for glossy magazine covers. Newsom, he said, has had years to prove himself, and the results are in. Californians are leaving, problems are worsening, and nothing is getting better. That's not leadership. That's failure. Maher's calm tone made the takedown even more brutal. He didn't need to shout or rant. He just laid out the facts with cutting sarcasm, letting Newsom's own record speak louder than any punchline. By the time Maher was finished, the audience knew they were witnessing more than a roast. This was a dismantling of Newsom's carefully constructed political brand. The image of the slick, charming governor had been stripped away. What was left was a politician who talks big but delivers little. Maher ended by warning America directly, California was the warning shot. Ignore it, and the entire nation pays the price. The applause was thunderous, but the message was grim. If Newsom's California is the model, then the country cannot afford to follow it. And that's how Bill Maher, without raising his voice, calmly destroyed Gavin Newsom on live TV, exposing not just the man, but the disaster he's left behind.